She has written many spectacular books. The most recent one is called The Toxic War on Masculinity, How Christianity Reconciles the Sexes. And it does. Nancy Pearcey, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
It's great to see you and to have you on. As I said in the introduction, I've read the book, so I'll try not to talk too much. But what you have done here is very important. You give us the intellectual background for understanding masculinity and how Christianity uniquely and utterly reconciles the sexes. So my first question, of course.
All right. This is coming from a biblical worldview, but I'm gonna try to keep it as practical and non-religious as possible.
Courses, why did you choose to write this book of all the things you might have written about?
Well, my eye was certainly caught by how incredibly hostile our culture has become to masculinity. The Washington Post had an article titled, "Why Can't We Hate Men?" And that was my wake-up call. I said, wait, in a respected mainstream publication like this, a Huffington Post editor tweeted hashtag kill all men.
Wow.
And you can buy t-shirts that say so many men, so little ammunition. And there are books with titles that are very blunt, like I Hate Men and No Good Men and Are Men Necessary? So this is what I wanted to get to the bottom of. Where is this coming from? You can't really stand against a social trend unless you know where it came from and how it developed.
Right.
And then there were even
what she just said was important. You can't stand against a social trend unless you know where it's coming from, and where it developed. So many people are running with philosophies. They don't know where they got them from. They heard their homegirl, their homeboy say something, but they don't know where their homegirl, their homeboy got it from or wherever. They just take things and they run with it. Y'all gotta go to the source. Like, if you're not going to the source, then you're gonna be lost. Like, for real, y'all. I don't know what to tell y'all. I just hear so many people just making things up on the fly and going with it. And I'd be like, man, that's crazy.
Men jumping on the bandwagon. A fairly well-known male author wrote a book in which he said, talking about healthy masculinity is like talking about healthy cancer.
Oh, wow.
And then one more, which you may have seen, it's not in the book because it came out more recently, but the director of the movie Avatar, James Cameron, was in the news because he said testosterone is a toxin that you have to work out of your system. So my initial reason for writing the book.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to ask a question. Is James Cameron, does he play for the other team? Because that's not something a straight man would say. Like, either he's playing for the other team or he's being paid by the people who play for the other team, and he has to say what they want him to say. One of the two, because that was crazy. James Cameron, that was crazy.
Because I just wanted to understand where's this coming from and how can we counter it more effectively.
Well, it's interesting. I obviously this has been in the culture for quite some time, and it's gotten particularly pointed in more recent years. But a number of years ago, my sense of this led me to write a book called 7 Men, and the way I dealt with it, which is just to tell to give 7 short biographies of 7, in my estimation, great men, and what it is that's uniquely great about them and about their manliness. And then I wrote a book about 7 women, and it's the same thing. What made these 7 women great is clearly comes out of their being women. And so we're seeing an attack on the one hand on men, we're seeing an attack on women. It's an attack on the image of God, and it's attack on God. There's no question in my mind that this is all an attack on God. But
all right, now, to the secular people, the reason he's saying that to the atheists or to the non-believer he's saying that because in his Christian purview, the way he sees it, God created family, right? So when he's saying this is an attack on God, he's saying this is an attack on the family structure that God created. So, you know what I'm saying? That's what he mean by that.
I'm so glad that you focused. I mean, you've really homed in on various aspects of this war on masculinity in the book and on the root side. So why don't we start with how this developed? Because a lot of people have this. Um, I think a lot of people don't really understand how this has been worked out in history. You know, what was a man and a father in the 19th century, for example, and how that led to. And you deal with that in the book wonderfully. So why don't we start there?
A lot of people would say, oh, well, this hostility to masculinity perhaps came out of the 1960s, second wave feminism, but it actually started much further back. And this was a surprise when I started researching the book. You have to go all the way back to the Industrial Revolution,
Right.
because prior to that, men worked with their husbands, men worked with their wives and their children
Get
all
that
day at the
right.
family farm, the family industry, the family business. And so the cultural expectation on men focused much more on their caretaking role. In fact, here's a historical fact that was very surprising. Most of the books and literature written on parenting back then addressed fathers. If you
Mm,
go in a typical bookstore today, they're mostly addressed to mothers. But back then,
true.
fathers did spend just as much time with their children as mothers did. And I love it when even secular historians bring out the Christian perspective that was very strong in the colonial era. So one historian says, masculine virtue was defined as duty to God and man. So that sense of duty.
Can I ask y'all a question? Is that should, is that an agreeable thing of what y'all see masculinity to be? Duty to God and man, like meaning men and women, like the human race. Just put it in the comments if that's what y'all think masculinity should be or is.
Duty. Where did we lose that? Well, it really started with the Industrial Revolution because it took work out of the home. And of course, men had
Mm,
to follow their work out of the home.
interesting.
And for the first
Mm.
time, they're working in factories and offices. They're not working with people they love and have a moral bond with their families. And that's when you see the literature start to
Oh,
change. People started to protest. They didn't like what they were seeing. They began to protest that men were becoming individualistic, egocentric, self interested, greedy, and acquisitive. I'm using the language of the day, and even making their career into an idol. That was the language.
I knew it. Okay, look. The minute she started talking about how they took the men out of the house, the first thing in my mind was now they've taken the woman out of the house. And she literally just kept going. And I know y'all probably not making a connection because I just went on some random in my head thoughts. But she literally just said exactly what's happening to women right now. They're idolizing their career. What else she said? She said, they left the house for their job. They become individualistic. Wow, that's exactly what's happening to women now. So if you pay attention, they did it to men first, and now it's the woman's turn. Wow, pay attention, women, if you godly, because it's something that they did to men. You just heard her say men were at home with you and the kids working together. Now they pulled him out in the Industrial Revolution, and now they're pulling you guys out with the sexual revolution. Wow, I just heard that. It's always a revolution. And it seems like it's always a revolution aimed to get the parent away from the kid so they can take the mind of the kid. Y'all better pay attention, man. Y'all better wake up. I'm telling you, they slick. They slickety, slickety, slick, slick, slick.
Which you saw. I thought that was fascinating. Many people said men are starting to make their idol, their career success, their financial achievements. So this was the first time negative language was applied to the male character. And of course, if the problem was men getting disconnected from their
In the
families, that does
1920s,
suggest what the most important
when did the industrial revolution happen? Did she say? So masculinity became toxic in the 1920s. Before that, we were together at the home. It was not a a masculine thing to be away from your wife and blah 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 blah. You were with your wife. So in my mind, toxic masculinity is masculinity devoid of love, right? So it's like if you take the love out of masculinity, then you get the sit down and shut up instead of hey, I need y'all to relax. You get the hey, I'll slap you in your mouth instead of the come on now, let's talk about it. You you get the aggressiveness without the love part of it. So so masculinity can be toxic, but masculinity itself is not toxic when love and God is involved.
solution is, which is reconnecting men to their families, which I have a whole chapter on that as well. But that's how far back you really have to go to find people very explicitly arguing that the male character has become degraded. And the language surprised me because it's almost as much as hostile as what we see today.
But what's interesting to me is how it's anybody who has a biblical worldview understands this is perfectly unbiblical. The idea to demonize any group, it's exactly like racism. To demonize men, to demonize women, to suggest that they are intrinsically flawed is a satanic project. And we're seeing.
Okay, now for the secular people, I don't know if you have to believe in God to understand it's wrong to demonize groups. So he said from a biblical worldview. But once again, he's coming from a biblical worldview. So he believes morals come from God, they're objective. Most secularists believe that there is no such thing as objective truth, and that everything's subjective, but which is really a defeating statement because if there's no such thing as objective truth, then the statement itself can't be true because that would be an objective truth. Does that make sense? Like it's objectively true that there's no such thing as objective truth. It's a self-defeating statement. You can't make the statement. But so he believes morals come from an objective truth, an objective God. So that's why he keeps saying certain things that sound Christian-y, and they don't have to. But his view comes from that.
Seeing it happen. Obviously, we're seeing it happen with men, but we're seeing the same thing happen with really the erasure of women. And ultimately, it's an attack on God and God's view of men and women.
Well, exactly. I mean, even in the 19th century, since you asked the historical question, you see people start to say, the father is a prototype of God in the family. And yet all of a sudden he's not here. We're used to being men being out of the home all day. But back then it was a shock. Like, where are the fathers?
Wow.
The leading psychologist of the day said, our boys are now half orphaned because their fathers were not in the home.
Wow.
And
Now
so
good job, CIA, FBI, whoever you are with. Good job, because now they're whole orphans. You got the man out of the house in the 20s with the Industrial Revolution. Now you took the woman out the house with the sexual revolution. Good job. Good job, you slickety slick snake, you. Good job.
I wanted to see, why was this cultural shift? It's because, like you say, because the father is the prototype of God in the family.
Apart from God, apart from the domestic influence of a wife, oftentimes that is where men go, and it's why God wants us typically to be in a marriage, because there's something that men do for women and something that women do for men that's beautiful, and it's God ordained. And so when you talk about men suddenly finding themselves away from their families most of the time, in a secular environment, and in an environment filled with other men. In other words, there's something there when you
Yeah.
think about what happens sociologically, the idea that men are not spending time with wife and kids in the home environment, but are suddenly now in this environment with other men most of the time. That's also a strange development, and it really led to, I think it's it was self-reinforcing in a sense. It creates this separation, or it creates a kind of an environment where men maybe begin looking down on women, or begin treating them, because they're not around them as much. This kind of hyper masculine society develops. In other words, there are truths there. So it's a little bit.
The parallels are crazy. Oh my God, bro. Y'all don't see it. So he just said, he just said, because men were spending so much time together, their true nature became hyperalized. I don't know if that's a word, but if it ain't, go ahead and put it down. Your boy just go ahead and yeah, I don't miss even when the ball hit the, never mind. But so it's like, and so now the women, the sisterhood, right? Like they've built this thing that they kind of think the men, the bro code, bros over blah blah blah. So now they built the sisterhood, right? And so now they're spending all this time together and going on girls trips and book clubs, and they can talk to each other on social media. They listen to each other on social media, and they watch. So it's like their minds are now together, and so now they're becoming, what word did I make up? Hyperized. Yeah. Yeah. But now, so now they're becoming hyperized, and just like we did, and now they're looking down on men. If you listen to women talk these days, no, there are no attractive men. There are no good men. There are no provider men. There are no men that protect. There are like no men, like not one, like not, if you start to show the signs of a penis on the sonogram, go ahead and delete that thing. Yeah, because you ain't gonna be no good. Do you remember a point in time in history when men did that to women? It was like, oh, it's a female baby. Go ahead and throw that thing. You remember? So now it's like the parallels, bro. The parallels are crazy.
Complicated, but what's wrong about it is it's a fatalistic, unbiblical view of who men are.
Yes, and about the end of the 19th century, what happened is men began to say, well, this is just who we are. Before that, the biblical view held enough sway.
You heard that, what she just said? So they changed the nature of men from caregivers. The books that were about parenting were written to men. They changed their nature from that to this hyper masculine thing, and it was going on long enough to where now all the men thought, hey, this is just how we are, blah 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 blah. So this is when masculinity became toxic for us. It's not supposed to be as aggressive as it is. Like, I know sometimes wisdom can look like weakness, because wisdom tells you don't punch somebody in the face when you know what I'm saying, when a foolish person would punch somebody in the face. So it's like it make you kind of look weak sometimes. So it's like now it's harder to get back to, because our women like aggression. So it's almost like they're telling us what type of woman to be, what type of man to be, what type of woman to like, and what type of man to like, and nobody has their own thoughts. So it's like we think we're individuals, but we're really this one big group. The sisterhood is proof of it. Like, what the bro code is proof of it. It's like every time we're just this one big group. We're not as individual as we think we are, especially not today. Because come on, man.
that men still felt, okay, my behavior needs to change. I need to live up to a biblical concept of masculinity. But then as the culture secularized, that's when men began to say, well, what we now have is the Andrew Tate phenomenon, right? Fast cars, fast money, fast women. And Andrew Tate specifically says, I'm a pimp. I produce pornography. And women need to understand that.
All right, now to all the fans of Andrew Tate, he is he is toxic, bro. But time out. Let me explain what I'm saying. He is a secular. Well, nah, he's a Muslim. So his belief system kind of allows for that. But once again, toxic masculinity is masculinity devoid of love, right? So it's like when you get this hard, cold guy, and he's really only being this way because he knows it attracts women. Like, so it's like basically, like, he could be soft and gentle, but he found out that women don't respond to that well. They tend to think, oh, he can't protect me because he being soft with me, so I know he gonna be soft with a man, which is crazy because it's not like I can punch you in your mouth like I can punch a man in the mouth. So I'm going to handle you completely different than I would handle a man. Women, your man want to be soft with you, and he wants to be soft with you in a way to where you won't think he's gonna be soft with another man if a man was to break in the house. He wants to be soft with you, and you still keep your confidence in him that if somebody come through this here window, he gonna go ahead and handle that. You see what I'm saying? But for some funny reason, him being soft with you triggers something in your head to where you just feel like he won't be able to protect you, and y'all gotta let that go. I think that's a incomplete thought. Like, people, I've noticed people been thinking incomplete. Like, you'll think something halfway, but if you just follow the logic all the way through, you'll see how, like, it doesn't make any sense. People tend to stop where they like it. It's like, okay, I like this part. I'm stopping. I'm good. Follow the logic, man. Just keep going and see where it ends. And 9 times out of 10, we be saying some goofy stuff. Like, we be talking stupid.
Men are just naturally sexually promiscuous, and they just need to accept that. So that's where the beginning of the Andrew Tate phenomenon comes from. And by the way, even Christian men are being drawn into it. I have a former graduate student who now teaches high school, and she said, all of my male students are fans of Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
They're even putting Andrew Tate quotes in the yearbook. I said, where do you teach? She's at a classical Christian school.
Yeah.
All right, so she not wrong, y'all. If you a Christian, Andrew Tate, it might not be the guy for you. I understand you want the masculinity of it, and we just looking for something masculine. But Andrew Tate, like she said, man, a pimp. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's a pimp. So it's like, I get it. You know what I'm saying? He get girls, he get money, the cars, the lifestyle. He brag and he backs it up. So it's like he was winning right now. And people, we follow results. We don't follow ideologies as much as we follow results. You know what I'm saying? We can make up ideologies on the go, but we still really want the results of what we know. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. So it's like, but Andrew Tate is he is toxic. Like, I can't lie, he is toxic. You know what I'm saying? I get the points that you agree with, but basically you got to eat the meat and spit out the bones of what he says, because some stuff he does say is definitely like true, and then other things he says is definitely coming from what she's talking about. They changed the way the man was. They made him aggressive. They made him hypersexual. He wasn't always like that. You get what I'm saying? We think that men were. Now, all through history, you have kings and these powerful people, and we are comparing ourselves to a 1% type of man. Like, there could only be one king in the land, right? There's other rich people and barons. And now, of course, you have your equivalent of these men in today's time, and Andrew Tate might be one of them, but he is not speaking for the average man. He is not even, he's speaking for a very small percentages of men. And we're so thirsty for something masculine that we're willing to latch on to the first thing that say, hey, I'm willing to do something to somebody and protect mine. You know what I'm saying? So it's like when we see that, we gravitate to it. But if you're a Christian, he is a Muslim. 9 times out of 10, he's going to give you a Muslim worldview. And if you're not a Christian, he's going to give you a worldview of that is aggressive. And I understand you don't have to be soft to be to be what I'm saying here. I think Jordan Peterson said it. He was like, a good man has to be dangerous. Like, if I'm not dangerous, then I'm just a bitch. Let's get it real. Like, if I'm not willing to do you nothing, then me not doing you something ain't me sparing your life. It's just me being scary, right? But if I'm willing and I'm able and I'm capable of doing you something and I choose not to, that's me being good. Do you get the difference? Like, so it's like, as a woman, y'all have to learn how to discern, is this dude soft or is he good? You get what I'm saying? Like, so y'all got to put y'all discernment glasses on, women and men. You know what I'm saying? So, you know.
So if churches are not giving men a strong, healthy, biblical model of masculinity, they are reaching out to these uh, online influencers who are
Like I
teaching a
said,
very secularized view. And that's why it's so important for us to get the biblical view out that Christian young men are not reaching out to the Andrew Tates of the world.
Well, I really do think that, sometimes these bad symptoms are a sign of deeper health, in the sense that I think young men are looking for real masculine role models. And to a large extent, they haven't found that in churches. Churches, as you well know,
yes, sir.
have been feminized. This is going back into the 19th century in America, but in this century, the virtues that seem to be held out are to be nice, to be winsome, and of course, there's a place for winsomeness, but there's also a place to be a warrior. And a lot of that stuff has been bleached out of even the church's version of what it is to be a man. So it's no wonder really that men, especially young men, are attracted in these various directions.
Yes, a lot of it's because we've lost the notion of the cultural mandate. In my book, I bring people back frequently to the cultural mandate, which is in Genesis 1. Half my students don't even know what the term means. In Genesis 1, God's created the universe. He creates the first human couple. And then what is a very
Right there. That's why Christians believe God created family. What she just said. God created Adam and Eve, the first couple. He made them to be together and they start having kids. So Christians believe that's a structure created by God. And that's why Christians also believe if you attack that structure, you're attacking God.
very first thing he says to them? Be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth. So that's your purpose. That's why I created you. And in the streamlined language of Genesis 1, we can unpack that. It doesn't mean just have families, but historically, all of the social institutions grow out of the family. The family becomes a clan, a village, a nation. You need
Wow.
social institutions for specific purposes,
Wow.
like you need a state, you need a church, you
That
need a
was deep.
school, you need a marketplace. And so this is a very rich calling for both men and women, but we're talking about men here. That their job is to build up all of the social environment. And then subdue the earth means harness the natural resources. So most societies start with agriculture, but then also technology and so on.
Men are doers. They like to do, they like to act. And to some extent, many churches have turned Christianity into this theological, ecclesiastical project, which it is not. It is meant to take over the whole person, all of our lives. We're supposed to take our theology into the whole world to make the world a better place, and on and on and on and on. and that it seems to me you were just saying lies at the root of why men often are less attracted to church environments and to church life, and why often it's women that are more involved in churches.
Exactly. The church has been privatized. Christianity has been privatized. And as a result, most of us tend to think of Christianity in terms of just the sort of specifically religious activities, going to church, going to Bible study, praying, and so on. And that's not what men and women were called to originally. In a sense, we could say, when we sin, we get off the track. When God saves us, we get back on the track. But what was the track? The track was the cultural mandate, which calls men to be, roll up their sleeves and be involved in building up the entire social world, including the laws and constitutions and treaties that govern it. And then secondly, build up the natural world in terms of technology and inventions, making computers.
I just heard another parallel, but not between what they did to men and now they're doing to women, but the parallel of how a Christian view matches a world view. When you listen to these podcasts, a lot of men tell you be on your purpose. Young men, you know what I'm saying? Be on your purpose, do this and do that. She literally just said building up the world. Like I'll bring it back. I'm gonna bring it back.
Govern it. And then secondly, build up the natural world in terms of technology and inventions, making computers, composing music. One of my students once said, "What, composing music? Really?" And I said, "Well, I play the violin. What's the violin made out of? Wood. What's the bow made out of? Horsehair." So all the transcendent beauty we associate with music starts with harnessing the raw materials of nature. And
Wow.
that's what the cultural mandate is about. It means that this verse, as theologians interpret it, means that our calling was to build cultures, create civilizations, make history. And so this gives a much bigger scope for men who, like you said, are doers, who want to accomplish, who want to have an impact, who want to achieve, who want to have mastery. That's what the Bible actually does call them to. And that's the vision that our churches need to communicate to men.
All right.
Well,
I'm gonna stop it right there. I like that. I like everything I just heard. She was just saying. So it was from a biblical worldview, but I don't know if you heard the parallels and how it's matching up. We pretty much all say we all want the same things out of each other. We just want to be happy with with each other. You know what I'm saying? I ain't talking about like be happy like everything goes right in your life. I'm talking about we just want to find a common ground to each other. And I think the common ground that we're missing is love between each other, especially like you got to have femininity with love. If you don't, it becomes toxic. You got to have masculinity with love. If you don't, it becomes toxic. You cannot escape that. So it's like when women say there's such thing as toxic masculinity, I want all men to understand, yes, you're true and you're right. And this is how we fix it. We got to come back to love. We got to come back to God. We have to, people. We got to find our way back, because they took the man out of the house first, and now they took the woman, and nobody's there to watch the kids. And I don't know if you paying attention to the kids, but yeah, they need their parents. Now, me personally, I don't even have any kids, and I still see and I still yearn for people to pay attention to that situation, because it's like y'all missing precious time with your children, doing whatever else you're doing, and y'all gonna want that time. I'm telling you, man, turn back to God, turn back to your family, leave the streets alone, leave the money alone, leave the gambling alone. I ain't talking about don't make money, but I'm saying like chasing money is chasing the wind. Like chase money. You're chasing the wind, my brother. You'll never catch. You're chasing the wind, and the minute you catch it, they can take it all away from you, freeze your assets because of some stupid tax mistake you made. You didn't even know you made it. You thought you was doing everything by the book. You could work for a company making $300,000 a year for 30 years, and they can be like, hey, we don't need you no more, and hire somebody who they only got to pay $70,000 a year to do your job and more than what you was doing. Yeah, come on, man. Stop chasing the wind. Family and relationships is what life is about. It's not about things, people. Y'all got to get it together. All right, man. Yeah. Like and subscribe. I'm gonna put the link to this video in the description if y'all want to go check it out. All right, man. I'm out of here.